This is the Three and Out podcast here alongside Brett Schaubs and Mike Cicchetti. I am Ben Pope. We are here after week 9 and a plethora of games that honestly didn't really do much to excite here or there, but we had a few games on the slate that were really exciting for us. Mike, you look so excited you're not even looking at the camera, my friend. Um, well,
I was actually
okay.
just looking at Justin Fields' stat line. Continue,
Okay,
please.
well, don't get too far ahead of yourself, my friend Brett, down in the corner with his hat pulled over his eyes like a 5-year-old child. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Let's put some respect on the narwhal, please. The narwhal deserves more than that. General Wee Wee. But yeah, we're doing good.
Okay, that was a little weird, and considering the team is called the Sea Unicorns, I don't know why you keep calling them the Narwhals, but we'll move on. It's here or there. Let's get into some of the biggest stuff coming from week 9, and probably the biggest surprise of the week comes down in New York. The matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. Jets, Jets. We've been big on them the past couple weeks and their kind of resurgence, but who could have seen this coming? The year of the coin flip. If you've been following that, they are currently 9-0 as the Jets pull off a surprising victory over Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, 22-17 in this one. 2 picks off of Josh Allen. The Jets offense was able to put up enough against Josh Allen in that uh, sensational defense. And yeah, a bit of a surprise here coming from the Jets. But my question to you guys, and we'll start off with Brett here. Who deserves the biggest credit to the Jets' success, not only in this game, but to their overall success thus far? Moving on to a 6-3 record, currently second in the division, and hold on to the 5 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the overall success of the Jets, and I think the biggest thing that stands out is their defensive play, right? A lot of times we're going to see New York get in these dogfights because the offense isn't really as productive as it can be sometimes, but what's always staying consistent is the defensive side of the ball. Everybody's always talking about this secondary with Michael Carter, DJ Reed, and of course, Sauce Gardner. The defensive line, when it's healthy, is one of the best in the league. I think a lot of the credit has to go, obviously, to Robert Saleh, the head coach. The defensive mind, a lot of energy. We knew coming into last year that he was going to try and change the culture and the attitude of the Jets, especially for this year with all the new acquisitions. I believe he's done so through 9 weeks, and it's been a big turnaround that we've seen thus far. So I think the majority of the credit has to go to Salah for not only building a culture, but making sure his players are set up for the best scenario possible.
Went from giving the credit to the defense to naming a bunch of players, then Robert Saleh. We're sticking with Robert Saleh. Okay, there, Brett. And you mentioned the secondary pick by Sauce Gardner late in the game, but also the pick in the first quarter by Jordan Whitehead, so which pretty much flipped the game on its head pretty early in that contest. Mike, who do you think deserves the most credit for the Jets' success thus far?
I mean, there are a ton of candidates, you could give it to. I'm going the rookies, honestly. Sauce and Brees Hall before he went down with an injury, Jermaine Johnson defensively, and Garrett Wilson, too. These guys came in and they're playing, up to their highest potential. Brees Hall was offensive rookie of the year standout, before he went down, the best rookie running back. And Sauce has been a top 5 cornerback, not even a rookie. He has been insane. He has been really, really good. And Garrett Wilson, even he comes in and he can have a big game, shows a lot of potential. So I think a lot of it goes to the young guys, and I've been banging this drum all year that if the young guys can play up to their potential, they're a really good team. I didn't think they would be able to this early, and it's showing. And I think the credit has to go to the rookies and the young guys.
You had 2 good cases on both sides here. I'm going to go a little bit higher up, and I'm going to give the credit to Joe Douglas. I think he's pretty much responsible for putting this team together into the structure that it has currently. When they hired Robert Saleh, really good draft classes the past few years. You mentioned all the rookies that they had this year, Mike, but even going back to the draft class with Zach Wilson, I know that Zach has not really shown up in a major way thus far this season, but he's keeping this team in games, aside from the one game where he probably struggled the most against New England. But otherwise, he's kept this football team in the contest pretty much every time. The defense has been phenomenal, but you got to understand that this has been pretty much put together by Joe Douglas. He's had really good off seasons back to back in 2021 and now 2022. So I think a lot of credit goes there. A lot of people talking about Howie Roseman and the job that he's done in Philly, but I think that Joe Douglas has been one of the stronger executives of the past couple of years and what he's been able to do with New York. But we can look on the opposite side of the ball now and look towards Buffalo. Josh Allen having his probably worst game of the season thus far, barely over 50% completion, 2 picks that really cemented this game for Buffalo. Guys, do we think that Buffalo is becoming perhaps too over-reliant on Josh Allen in his success?
No, I don't think so, personally. Is the offense obviously running through Allen and Allen first? Absolutely, right? A lot of this run game is sort of predominant with Josh Allen. Then it goes to the committee. Wide receivers wouldn't be able to do what they do without Josh Allen. But I don't think the whole team is reliant on his success first. I just think last game and then especially a few weeks prior, it just so happens they're running a good defense and they have to play physical football. We talked about the same thing with Kansas City and Tennessee as a group a few nights ago, how Kansas City pretty much got matched physically with Tennessee and they had to play a different style of football. And I think that's what Buffalo had to do against the Jets. They had to play a different style of football than they're used to, had to slow down, had to find different ways to get positive yards. And at the end of the day, they just didn't come out successful against a strong defensive New York team. So I think going forward, they're going to have to switch some things up, but you always got to give credit to Josh Allen where it's due.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree with Brett. And I think the over-reliance of Josh Allen in the run game, the acquisition of Naheem Hines, I think will help that for sure. Because Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, they weren't really doing it. Rushing wise, I think Naheem Hines helps that a little bit, helps that more than they have. But I still think they're going to be reliant on Josh Allen in the run game. Over reliant, I wouldn't say so. I keep telling myself, and Bills fans should as well, that they're still missing their best defensive player in Tre'Davious White. He's been out all year, and he should be coming back this week. I know they took him off the injury report last week. He didn't play though. But he's coming back soon, and we know how he plays up to his potential. How good of a cornerback he is, and how much he will change that defense.
Yeah, I think I'm on a precipice where I would say that the Bills are over reliant on Josh Allen. I get that they've been able to make some moves in the offseason where like their D line has probably been the biggest complaint for a few years. That's probably their biggest struggle aside from the run game. Add Von Miller. That's been pretty solid. But in these games where Josh Allen struggles, they're pretty much not able to get any lick of offense otherwise. And I would say that's probably present with 2 other teams as well. And 2 other teams that have the same amount of wins as the Bills in the AFC. That's the Chiefs and the Ravens. If any of those 3 teams don't have their quarterback doing anything on offense, they're not getting anything. You look at the Bengals. Joe Burrow had a fine game this past week, but they're able to get something out of their run game with Joe Mixon. Tennessee doesn't have any reliance on their quarterback because Tannehill, Malik Willis, they're pretty much able to do whatever because they're over-reliant on a running back, Derrick Henry. The Chargers, even though that they're struggling with injuries this past few weeks, honestly, this whole year, Justin Herbert's dealing with an injury. They have Austin Eckler, which they're able to use, and they still have pass game, which is getting back Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. When Josh Allen is not having a right game, which that might be something to look at going forward because he's apparently dealing with some sort of elbow injury that he sustained this past weekend against the Jets. That might be a bigger concern than like people are initially talking about because Matthew Stafford's been dealing with an elbow injury this entire season. And look how good he's been. He's been really bad aside from over relying on Cooper Kupp. So like, and this isn't anything to go against Josh Allen or the way that the Bills have constructed around him. I think it's wrong to say that just because they're the best team in the NFL right now, not record wise, but just probably within standing with the Chiefs and everything, that it's wrong to say that they're over reliant on their quarterback. No, that they're probably the best team in the NFL, if not the second best, because of Josh Allen. So
And to your point about the 3 teams that are over reliant on the quarterback, as in Lamar and Mahomes, Allen, you look at all 3 of those teams' running games in terms of the running back rooms.
oh, it's non-existent.
Yep.
Right.
Nothing.
And I think that's a big common denominator that plays into it. Whereas they rely on the quarterback not only to pass the ball as they should, but also rush the ball as we do with Lamar and Josh Allen. Not so much Mahomes, although he can, but that's a big common denominator between those 3.
And it's not me like getting concerned about the Bills, like unless this Allen injury does become something more. But like even with one of those examples, the Ravens, we saw them without Lamar last year, and they were dealing with so many injuries. And I would still say that they are over reliant on Lamar. But they had games without Lamar last year where they were able to beat just mediocre teams. Like they were able to beat Pittsburgh. I believe they beat the Browns once without Lamar. Like they're still able to do it. I don't know if the Bills are able to get anything going because at least the Ravens have a run game to support them on offense. The Bills
Right.
wouldn't have anything. So I think it's not like a bad thing because the Chiefs have been over reliant on Mahomes. They were over reliant on Mahomes in the Super Bowl run, and they made a Super Bowl. But I think it's just like important to recognize that like there's a reason that Josh Allen is like my MVP like far and away, and it's because of like this fact that the Bills are over reliant on him.
Yeah. I think honestly, when it comes down to it, and I'll say this as the last point, when it comes to Allen's value to Buffalo compared to the Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons, I feel like Buffalo's only got 2 styles of offense when it comes down to it at the end of the day. You've got Josh Allen trying to gunsling it, or you've got Josh Allen trying to run it. And I'm very much starting to see that it's beginning to trend towards an over reliance. I'm still hesitant to say that because of the way they were able to adjust a little bit against the Jets. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at this, I don't know. I think Allen's going to have to adjust his game going forward if he wants the Bills to play these types of teams where you're going to have strong defensive fronts that are going to switch up their game plan. I honestly, right now, am in love with Mahomes right now because of the way he changed his game against the Titans. Mahomes has always been someone who loves to throw the ball deep, loves to gunsling, stretch the field. He did the exact opposite against Tennessee. Played small ball, little 5-6 yard dump offs to Kelsey and Smith Schuster. I'll talk about that in a little bit more, but I just love the way that he was able to adjust his game and go forward to get them to that point and win the football game. So I think Allen's going to have to change it moving forward and extend his value in Buffalo.
Well, with our courtesy ding, that means
That
we
was
can
me.
move on.
That was not me. That
Oh
was not me
wow,
for
so
once.
Mike's being disrespectful this time. Well,
That was me.
I'm glad to see that you're evening out between the two.
Yeah, let me.
Well,
Well, I think you still got numbers on me.
so he's got
Oh,
like
boy.
triple digits on both of us.
True.
But we'll move on, guys. It's time to be honest here. Even though Mike apparently thinks I'm some sort of Bengals fan, I have to reveal my true colors. I'm back, baby. The Tennessee Titans are back in my blood. They are remaining there. I don't care if my favorite player is gone. They have redeemed it. It's the same as Heat culture, Tennessee culture. Mike Vrabel, I'm with you, man. And my God, they almost did it. They almost beat the Chiefs with a rookie quarterback that barely completed like 50 yards. Man, they are impressive, and their offense is not because they pretty much didn't do anything on offense in the second half of the game, losing to the Chiefs in overtime. But I was really impressed with how Tennessee played in prime time against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. They've won in Arrowhead previous year. They played them the previous 2 years, not only in the playoffs as well, and played them pretty tough. So I guess my question here with Tennessee is, and we can talk about what they were dealing with at quarterback. Ryan Tannehill was dealing with a leg injury. He was unable to play. They had to put Malik Willis into the game. I don't believe they ended up having a reception to a wide receiver in this contest, which just says kind of the nature of the game with Titan
Speaks
ball,
volumes. Speaks volumes.
pretty much. Coining that now Titan ball instead of money ball. But the
Ooh.
overall question here is, and this doesn't even pertain to, I guess, this season. We can go a little bit further into like the future going forward. Do you think the Titans can sustain success while pretty much living off their run game, eliminating their pass game close to entirely?
Yeah. I mean, Derrick Henry showed that he's still him. Like my tweet said, he showed that he is still the best running back in the league, and that defense has been impressive. That defense being able to contain the Chiefs' offense was surprising to me. And even I wasn't super, super low as many other people were on the Titans defense coming into the year, but even they shocked me that how they played. Now, long term wise, speaking later into this year, I think it'll be kind of tough because you need to have at least a guy you can trust, and Tennessee doesn't really have that. So I think over time, I hope they can try to find that receiver. But I mean, it's halfway through the year and they really don't have that yet. So as good as Derrick Henry is, I would still be a little weary, if they don't find that number one guy in that offense.
I'm kind of on the same mindset as Mike, except I don't think they should be reliant directly on Henry, period. Right? As much as you have a strong run game with Henry and you want to evaluate that first, what happens if either A, Henry goes down like he did last year, or B, teams are able to shut down their run game like they have before? We've seen that in the last three or four postseasons where Baltimore's been able to shut down Henry, Kansas City's been able to shut down Henry, and the offense is basically limited to one or two things. Yes.
Both, like, I'm going to eliminate the Kansas City game, the Baltimore game, and the game they lost against Cincinnati. Those were due to Tannehill picks. Like, Henry played pretty well in both those games. Well, timeout again. He played well against Kansas City and played well against Baltimore. It was his first game off the Achilles injury
Yeah.
against Cincinnati. So I don't give a ruffles about what he did
No.
in that game, to be honest.
You're right. And fair enough. But going forward, I don't think you should be reliant on one sole running back because, say, he either does go down or for some reason he does get shut down by a defense. You're limiting yourself to very few options.
Unless they continue the trend that they kind of started last year before he went down and they had him be the lead receiver.
He's basically just the do-it-all man at this point.
Yeah, because they did start having him, catching some passes out the backfield, and at that size, sure, but no. I mean, you need the guy. You need the guy.
You
We'll
need
see.
Henry at first, but I think at this point, like it's important, especially with these opportunities, that you give Malik Willis opportunity. I get that Ryan Tannehill's injured and he's your veteran quarterback, but if you want some sort of dynamic offense to complement Henry, or at least have another backup option on offense,
Know who you
you've got
need?
yeah,
You need
What's
AJ
this?
Brown.
You needed 2K. Never
I'm,
open. He
I'm
tweeted it.
trying to forgive them, Mike. That is not helping.
It's tough. It's tough
Hey,
because
they got Austin
Tennessee.
Hooper. They got Austin Hooper. Malik
Well,
loves Austin Hooper.
Austin Hooper's been on 5 teams in the past 3 years.
You targeted the man twice, and you're like, he loves him. He threw 8 passes. I mean, like, you're going to say Chidi Okonkwo is his favorite because he got a 40-yard pass?
Oh my God, AJ Brown. Oh, this team would look so good.
Well, here's the thing, right? So, what did they do? So, in overtime, and even on their like last couple drives.
Hmm.
Third down. What did what did Vrabel draw up for the offense? They did runs on third down. You want to know what they would have done last year? They would have targeted AJ Brown on a slant over the middle for 15 yards, and it would have been a pickup 80% of the time. That's literally what their offense was. And like, so I'll give a few credits here. So Chidi Nkonkwo, he's been getting like solid target share, like as much as you could with like Tennessee throwing the ball like 20 times a game. Him and Hooper both seem like they have like some connection with Willis, like a little bit. And Traylon Burks is coming back either this week or next week. He's still on IR technically, so that's
Hmm.
that's like the biggest thing for me to give hope. Like if Trey Burks comes back and he actually plays like the way that he was projecting, like he was getting like a 20% snap share, 40%, 60%. Like that game that he got injured, he was trending up. So I have some optimism in that he'll be able to at least get something out of the pass game. And let me set this straight. Ryan Tannehill is going to be starting if healthy. Don't entertain Malik Willis. Like he was good.
Right.
Like he kept them in games. He
Hmm.
won that game against Houston. He kept them in the game against Kansas City. He's not going to be starting this year. Ryan Tannehill is the starter in Tennessee. That's
Yeah.
clear as day. But you got to see Ryan like air the ball out a little bit more. Like at least he had games the previous couple years, even without AJ Brown in the lineup, that they were throwing the ball like 30, 35 times a game, and they were letting him run out of the pocket as well. He really hasn't been doing that at all this year. So if they open up the offense a little bit to what it was last year, I understand don't have AJ Brown, but you didn't have AJ Brown for parts of the previous 2 years. Same with Derrick Henry, you didn't have him for parts of the previous 2 years. Doesn't mean you have to restrain yourself. Like you have solid pieces enough. Like Robert Woods isn't a scrub. He just isn't
Right.
being used.
And I think that Traylon Burks coming back and playing how we, expect kind of, that will help Robert Woods out too.
Yeah. Because I think they can both get like decent enough target shares. If they can each get like 4 to 5 targets a game, that's all I'm asking. Nothing
Because
crazy.
Robert Woods is only averaging like 30 yards a game, which
Yeah.
is like, come on.
No way.
Well, it's on like 2 catches. That's why.
Well,
But yeah, like wrap up the point. I'm sticking with Tennessee. I don't think they're going to win a playoff game. If they get lucky again, they win one. But I think as long as the division is trash, they're going to walk into 10 to 11 wins in the Henry era as long as that goes. So I think they're able to maintain that success, and it all goes up to the top because Mike Vrabel, winning culture, baby. But that's all I have to say about that. We can move on. We can go over to the NFC because we've been talking about the AFC a little bit. We first go to the Buccaneers Rams game. That was probably the main highlight of the 4 o'clock slate. Um,
yikes.
one of the two games that I tuned into full, aside from Chiefs and Titans, and man, my time could be used way better elsewhere. But the Bucks were able to pull it off on a comeback victory. Oh, so huge. No, they just had one touchdown drive at the end of the game because the Rams couldn't do anything else. And we got to talk about the Packers as well because I just want to lump these three teams together because like they're all just like gross. The
Yeah.
Packers looked awful in their game against the Lions. They lost 15-9. Rodgers threw 3 interceptions, and it was just really ugly. Their offense looks even worse. Christian Watson leaves the game again. Romeo Dobbs now has like a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a month. Guys, out of these three teams, are we revoking our like congressional like playoff ticket? Like these three teams coming into the season, we all believe that they were pretty much clear playoff teams.
Hmm.
Do we want to revoke their playoff chances with any of these three teams? I'll start off with Mike here.
No, I don't. I mean, well, The Rams and Bucks, I'm still holding out hope on. The Packers is a tough one for me because before this week, before Aaron Rodgers' game against Detroit, I said it's Aaron Rodgers. You know what he can do, but it was horrible. It was horrible this weekend. Rashawn Gary going down with a torn ACL is huge. He's been really, really big for them. I think. I mean the. Uh, I don't know. It's tough to have hope for any of these teams, honestly. But you know what they can do. So no, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer this question because it's just like you know what these teams are capable of, but they've disappointed the whole season.
Brett, can you give us a straight answer here?
I'm just gonna say this straight up. Green Bay, get out. Like, you're done. Get out. Like, I'm done
The
playing
Jordan Peele movie?
yes, exactly like that.
It's his best one.
I'm just so sick of this Aaron Rodgers crap and how he basically plays himself up to be this big aura and how he's gonna play hero ball. And then every game he goes out and pulls these stunts where it's 2 picks a game, 3 picks a game. Can't even get over 200 yards passing. Like, I'm just sick of him trying to portray himself as one of the best QBs in the league when he can't even get over 200 yards passing without Devontae Adams. It frustrates me because not only does it make himself look bad and the offense look bad, but it wears his defense out so much to the point where they're getting aggravated. Devontae Campbell went out on Twitter the other day and just started complaining about everything, not even just football side, but it's just getting frustrating to seeing the Packers imploding on themselves and how good of a coach LaFleur is and how his players are practically just stepping aside. I don't know. I just think they're done at this point. I'm kicking them out. Revoke the card.
I
I'm
see.
still
Continue.
the Packers and Rams. I'm still holding out on. I think between the two, I think
Bucks and
Tampa
Rams?
Bay.
The Bucks and
So,
Rams.
did I say Packers Rams?
Yeah, you're fine.
Oh, between the Bucks and Rams, I'm giving the Bucks the benefit of the doubt because of how Matt Stafford has been
I would
bleh.
agree.
And I like the way that the Bucks have been playing small ball recently.
Plus,
So
plus the Bucks, the top 3 coach.
pretty
But
much.
the only reason I don't really want to go super low on any of these teams is because of the whole unknown of the NFC. Like all of the teams that are good, all of the teams that are good in the NFC are you couldn't question if all of them are flukes. You know what I'm saying? Like the Seahawks, they have 6 wins. Who would have thought that? Are they serious? We still don't know. Philly, they're undefeated. Can they last? I mean, they're kind of
They pretty much punched their ticket to the playoffs at this point. So
no, I'm saying playoffs, but further. That's one thing. The Giants, the Cowboys, everyone, can we trust the Cowboys? The Vikings, the worst 7-1, 8-1 team in history, whatever they are. Not really, but
I don't know about that one, Chief.
It's just like the unknown because there are no like super teams in the NFC that are like besides Philly. Go ahead.
I will say this. Sorry to time out here. I think this is a point now in the NFL where people are going to get uncomfortable with the dynamic of how the NFC has shaped out. And I think this is a time where things are going to change. It's that sort of in between point where you're going to see teams like the Rams, the Packers, the Buccaneers. I'm trying to think of another one. Your Cardinals of the world, your 49ers potentially fall a little bit down in the standings, and you're going to start to see a little bit more turnover. The new Vikings of the world, the Eagles, the Seahawks out of nowhere, the Giants. It's kind of getting to that uncomfortable stage where you don't know because of how short term the success has been. But I think going forward, this is going to be serious.
Well, this is exactly what I'm saying. That's why I don't want to rule these teams that are have been disappointing out yet, because we know how they can play, and we know that these teams that are at the top of this conference are new. They're all new.
Yeah. See, but I'm ready to write off some of these older teams and ready to put in the new ones. Like Seattle, say what you want about my third team bias, but they're serious. I think they're legitimate. The Giants, I think they're legitimate. But
right. I agree with you to a point, but we have an 8-game sample size. You know what I'm
9.
saying?
9 games
9 weeks.
for some it's 8. For
8,
some it's 8.
9.
Who gives a ruffle?
Unless you're like the Saints with a week 14 bye. So this
Yikes.
is why I like throwing this question out. I think we definitely talked about this pretty much at same exact point before, but it's a thing where like the NFC is so garbage, or at least in our eyes, it's garbage. Like we think back to like last year, there were like 4 clear teams that were good. The Packers were good, the Cowboys were good, the Rams were good, and
Tampa Bay.
the Bucks were good. And then like the Niners were kind of there as well. So there were like 5 really good teams. Everyone else was garbage. Who else can make the playoffs? Eagles ended up making the playoffs. And who? Oh, the Cardinals. Yeah, because they started off so great. But I think we're like living in the past where like we're not able to recognize like, oh, you don't have to be like a super team with like a great quarterback just to be like a playoff team. Which is why like I'm gonna write off the Rams because I watched them play yesterday and they've got great players. They got
no doubt
one of the best corners in the league. They've got one of the best defensive players in the league. They've got the best wide receiver in the league. But man, like they just look discombobulated. Like I have all the respect in the world for Sean McVay, but their team just looks rough out there, to be honest with you. Like they have absolutely no run game. Matthew Stafford is clearly dealing with something that is hindering his game completely. Like I know he dealt with a lot of picks last year, but he's not even like ready to throw the ball deep downfield. Like any of his big touchdowns this year have been all yards after the catch via the one good player on their team right now. No disrespect to like Aaron Donald or like Jalen Ramsey. The only player playing up to snuff completely is Cooper Kupp. That's it. At least with the Packers, you can say like, oh, their defense has been like a little underperforming, and then their offense just you don't have anyone to throw to aside from the running backs. Like the Packers have some sort of excuse. The Rams, like they've dealt with O-line injuries, but it's not like they're leading the world with Matthew Stafford getting sacks. No, that's clearly Joe Burrow and then like a big pile of poop and then like the second person. But like, I don't know. The Rams are just looking ugly. I'm close to writing off the Packers as well because they're just bad. The Bucks, I'm not because they're in a bad division, and there's no way that Marcus Mariota or Baker Mayfield, whoever starts for the Panthers, or Jameis or Andy Dalton or whoever Dennis Allen trots out there, like the Bucks are going to win their division.
Or himself. Might as well throw Dennis Allen out there at this point.
Is he a former QB?
Yep.
Oh. Well,
no.
I'm pretty sure. Let me look it up.
Regardless, you can
QB turned defensive coach.
And it's like he looks like Dan Orlovsky, so I think he's a quarterback. But regardless, like I think the Rams are out. I'm done with them. Packers are pretty close, and the Bucks are only in there because they're a division. I think we just need to understand this is kind of a new era of the NFC. Not a bunch of super teams, just a bunch of mediocre teams, and the Cowboys and the Eagles. That's pretty much it.
He was a safety.
That was awful.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Womp womp. Oh, regardless, we can move on, and we could talk about some history happening on Sunday in a loss to yet another one of my teams, the Miami Dolphins, but that's regardless. Justin Fields set the rushing record for a quarterback, overtaking Michael Vick with 178 rushing yards against the Miami Dolphins in a 35-32 loss. Justin Fields also threw for the most completions, most touchdown passes, and the most just passes in general, pass attempts that he's had this entire season. He's been looking really good over the past month. Hasn't thrown a pick in about 3 or 4 weeks. And even though the Bears are kind of retooling, they traded Roquan Smith and some other pieces as well. he's looked pretty good. Now the question comes, and this has been something that I've been thinking about a little bit recently with the struggles of both Mac Jones. Trevor Lawrence hasn't won a game until this past weekend against the lowly Raiders. Is Justin Fields actually the best quarterback in the 2021 class? Are we ready to say that?
Yeah. And I don't think it's close right now. I'm saying right now, you can't make an argument for anyone else. I mean, Mac Jones was the clear front runner last season. He hasn't played up to anything this year. You can't really say something about Davis Mills, right? Trevor Lawrence, I would
It
put
wasn't
2.
part of the conversation, but that was nice to say that.
Well, I'm just saying him because he was like the second best quarterback at the end of last year, rookie quarterback.
Yep.
Trey Lance, it's hard to you can't even gauge how can't even, compare him. He's played what 3 games, started 3 games total or something. And then Zach Wilson has been very, very low key offensively. So I think it has to be Justin Fields. I would put Trevor Lawrence too, but I was saying I made a tweet on Sunday that it's so crazy to think that halfway through their second season, Justin Fields is the best because he didn't look anything close to. You would have had him, down near the bottom, but I mean, he's been impressive. He's been really impressive.
Yeah.
And aside
And
from maybe Davis Mills, which that's still light add in there, Davis Mills, he's dealing with the worst situation. But go ahead, Brett.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I'm very much having Justin Fields at the top of my list. I think when you just look at tape and you compare Fields and how comfortable he is to Lawrence, to Mac, to Davis Mills, if you want to throw him in there again, he just looks comfortable. And as much as of a defensive-minded coach Matt Eberflus is, I give him a lot of credit for making this offense comfortable and designed around Justin Fields' gameplay. He's able to work around the pocket and have open space. He's able to spread the ball downfield and have at least, what's the word I'm looking for? Talented enough weapons to make the job possible. Guys like
I would
Darnell
do
Mooney and Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're retooling, but for the lack of a better term, yeah, I just really love the way Fields has been able to play football right now. He just looks comfortable and he looks like he's in his own world right now compared to the other quarterbacks. He looks like an NFL vet playing, especially in the last month right now. And I'm ready to give him, that respect when it comes to it. I keep saying, and I've said it the last few weeks, at some portions, like during these games, the Bears do him injustice, especially on defense, where they have to keep throwing him out there and keep relying on Fields to move the ball downfield and keep throwing up points against these shootout teams. Miami, for example, they could have easily been in that game if they got a couple more stops on defense against Tua and that crazy offense, but they didn't.
They were in that game. They lost by what, 3?
They lost by less than a touchdown. But like I said, if they were able to make 1 or 2 more stops, Chicago wins that game. So I think at this point, it's all about a little bit more retooling on defense, and Justin Fields is going to be able to get the prime respect that I think he deserves and be considered one of the top QBs in this league. I think it's getting to that point, and I think he's going to be something serious.
So I just have all their stats pulled together. So Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and Justin Fields.
Can you read strictly passing stats?
Sure. So Trevor Lawrence has just over 2,000 yards. That is top 10 in the NFL. He had 3,600 last year. In 17 games last year, Mac Jones at 3,800 passing yards. In 6, he has about 1,150. Zach Wilson in 13 games last year had 2,300. 6 games, about 1,200. And then Justin Fields, he had 1,870 last year in 12 games. 9 games this year, he's got 1,300, a little bit over. So weirdly enough, I'm not gonna go there yet. I honestly don't
Yeah.
think I can go there yet. I'm gonna say Trevor Lawrence is still the best. Trevor Lawrence has been okay. Get this out of the way. He looked really good in the first 3 games when Jacksonville was winning. They went
Yep.
on a 5-game losing streak. They looked bad, and then we all kind of forgot about him. Trevor Lawrence is quietly. He went from 59% completion last year, close to 65% completion now. His touchdowns to interception ratio, it was one of the worst in the league. He had 10 touchdowns to 17 picks last year. He's at 12-6 right now, so it's better. His yards per attempt has risen nearly a full yard. Like, I know that Jacksonville's looked bad recently just because they've been inconsistent and honestly, like, to fault of his own, but also to fault of just like inconsistent play around him.
Yep.
I think I might still go with him because Justin Fields hasn't really shown me any improvements with his arm. Like,
That's
he's looked good recently, but
that's the thing about it because he has the rushing stats to supplement, how he looks, but he had what, 120, 30 passing yards this past week.
yeah.
I mean, to his credit, he's been playing incredible. But strictly passing wise, no. I mean, you know what you got in him. I mean, he's a second year guy in the worst situation. But I think
I
BC
don't
was
know.
kind of hyping him up a little bit.
I personally am very high on Justin Fields because of the way I've watched him play the last few weeks. It might just be recency bias. I want to see a little bit more out of him. When I look at this
For sure.
situation in particular, I almost have Lawrence and Mac Jones equal right now. I know Trevor Lawrence statistically has been the better quarterback and he's had a lot more success in the last 9 games. But let's take a look at the last 5, right? Where they lost before this Vegas game. I've actually broke down a little bit of Lawrence's tape, like just on the side. He made a lot of mistakes that cost him football games. A lot. Just little throws that were underthrown, throws that were overthrown and cost them drives where they were either just outside the red zone or approaching that mark. Just little mistakes where a quarterback, maybe like a veteran, is going to have those throws and make that progress. But to me, especially how hyped Lawrence was coming out of the draft, he hasn't shown me that threshold yet to give him that top tier respect.
But that's the
Mac
thing,
Jones,
like you have to recognize between like where he was at the draft and who he is now. I'm not I
oh,
don't
he's
I
developed
don't
a
get
thousand percent. Don't get me
no, no,
wrong.
no. Like, oh, he might have developed. I don't care what he was as a prospect. What is he right now? I think he's a better. So the thing with Justin Fields is, and I'm trying to determine this right now, is he like Lamar, where like Lamar's passing game numbers aren't going to look as great, but he's just a better game manager. He's a better decision maker than like the quarterbacks around him. Lamar ended up being that, and he's showing that this year again because he's playing well. He's playing like a top 5 quarterback.
Yep.
Is Justin Fields the same way? I don't know that for sure
Right.
because when he's completing like 15 passes per game, I can't really determine that. He's getting his passing numbers up now, but he's still like completing like 55% of his throws, and his like turnover numbers aren't still like the best. It's been good recently, and like he had 2 really good games against both New England and Dallas, probably 2 of the 3 top, maybe top 5 defenses in the league. So you got to give him credit there. But I'm still trying to determine like, is he still? Is that just a fluke? Is that just like part of like him having a few good games, or does he have a Lamar arc where he is just not that type of passer and he plays a different style of game? Because you don't think that, right? Because the way that he's built, he's got a great arm, but his accuracy isn't there. So like, I don't know. It's me trying to figure out where Justin Fields lands. Personally, right now, if you ask me who I want to start a football game for me, I'd say Justin Fields. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Trevor Lawrence still like, I don't know. It's a really tough question because they both provide like different things to each other right now.
They're both
Frankly,
different quarterbacks and have their own niches. Like Trevor Lawrence, we've seen him be a lot more of a game manager and able to work with the weapons that he has and sort of establish the run side of things. Justin Fields is able to work out of the pocket and extend plays that Trevor Lawrence can't. Like I understand Lawrence has a set of legs and is able to extend a play, but Fields just brings it into a zone that these other quarterbacks can't. I don't know. I agree. It's a very difficult question, and these next 5-6 games are going to help determine it a little more with where the circumstances, especially for playoffs, are going to be on the line for these guys. But if I were to start somebody, I'm picking Fields.
So let's just clarify. Let's determine our answers here. Mike, are you Justin Fields?
In terms of what? Currently?
I guess just if you were pick best quarterback from going back to the question.
So if we're going, if you have your team out of the 2021 quarterbacks, who would you take as your quarterback?
Correct.
I would still take Trevor Lawrence.
Brett?
Which is fair. I'm taking Justin Fields.
If you go Trevor Lawrence, I'll switch my answer. I want Trey Lance.
If you're taking Trey Lance, I'm taking Jameis Winston from 2015.
Oh,
Stop.
my
Okay,
goodness.
now you're getting.
I think I'd take Trevor Lawrence. I'm going back and forth. I think I would take Trevor Lawrence.
It's such a hard question. This is a good one. This was such a hard question.
Yeah,
and it's because of such a small sample size from these players.
It's because literally the Bears. If I need to watch some Jags footage, obviously, because I'm completely like dumbfounded of how did they go on a 5-game losing streak? Like, and Trevor Lawrence didn't play that bad. Like, he obviously played bad because they didn't win any games. But all right, regardless, we got to move on. We are out of our regular slate, and we can go into games of the week for Week 10. We actually have that's a solid slate. Won't lie here, but we got a few games that stand out here. We'll go over to Brett first for his game of the week.
Yeah, for me, it is Minnesota and Buffalo in the 1:00 slate of games. This is going to determine whether or not Minnesota is the real deal. We've talked about before how they're sort of a potential fraudulent team, even though they're 8-1 now up to this point. But they've played a lot of weaker teams in their schedule. This is going to be their first legitimate challenge. Buffalo's also looking to prove something after taking a little bit of a disappointing loss against the Jets. So this could be a clash of the Titans here to see, who's looking to prove themselves more in this case. But yeah, I am definitely excited for the Vikings and the Bills at 1.
I'm going to be really excited when the Vikings end up winning this game, and then they're like, "But we're not frauds now, Ben." But I'm like, well, Josh Allen is playing at like 40%, and you still could only beat him by 3 points. Regardless, we'll go over to Mike next.
I got the Sunday night game, the LA Chargers at the San Francisco 49ers. Both of these teams have been very wishy-washy this whole season. They've been very up and down, and a lot of it has been due to injuries. I think this game we will be able to gauge not only the Chargers, well, obviously, but I mean, gauge the 49ers continuing with McCaffrey in that offense because he was dominant first game with them. But will he be able to continue that? And I think the Chargers will be a tough task for the 49ers on both sides of the ball.
Pretty fair there, Mike. I'm going to go from the Sunday night game with you. We're going to go to the Sunday morning game.
12 hours before that.
Friggin' Europe, dog. Wow. It's the Buccaneers versus the Seahawks. And Seattle coming off another strong win this past weekend against Arizona. Looked really good on both sides of the ball. Made Kyler and Cliff look like frauds once again. But it's more about the Bucs here, and I'm interested to see how they play against the Seattle team, which Tampa Bay clearly outclasses them in the amount of talent that they have on this roster. But the Seattle continue to play the way that we've seen them play pretty much all season. And I honestly think they do. I think this is going to be a tough matchup here for Brady. I think he's going to be probably in a comfortable spot, but I don't know. It's very, very all over the place here for me. But I do like Seattle in this game. I'm interested to see how Tampa and the Bucks, Tom and the Bucks play, um, coming off a big win and everything. So we'll have to see if Brady makes any more excuses to miss a Saturday practice. But we will see. I got the Seahawks and the Bucks, and we can move on into our stands of the week. Big week for a bunch of players in the NFL. We'll have to see where our guys go here. Start off with Mike here. Who is your first stand of the week?
My first stand is rookie safety Kirby Joseph. Lions safety had 2 huge interceptions against Aaron Rodgers, and he was all over that field for that defense. Him and Jeff Okuda, 2 youngins in that secondary, and they look promising. So shout out Kirby.
Never thought I'd be sniped on a defensive stand, but here we are. We'll go to Brett next.
Okay. Interesting start. I am a Juju Smith-Schuster stan.
Oh, you said it right.
I'm always going to say Smith-Schuster. He's a former Steeler.
It's a good thing they didn't play this past weekend. We'll move on.
For the benefit of the watching audience. Anyways, the catches that Smith-Schuster made against Tennessee just had me glued to the television the entire time. This was one of the games very similar to Ben, where I watched it in its entirety. One of the players that just kept getting fixated for me was Smith-Schuster because of the ability that he had to switch his game, not so much from extending the field, but playing the Travis Kelce style football. Small ball, catches up the middle, trying to find short yardage for first downs. He literally played the small game that Mahomes had to adjust to, and he made himself available wherever he could. I believe he finished with 12 targets on the day, something that Smith-Schuster doesn't get too often. So got to give him a lot of credit, and I am a Juju stan.
Well, I pulled out the tandem last week. I'm going to do it again this week. I am a Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney stan, and we'll add the trio, Cole Kmet. We're going with all the Bears pass catchers because they finally threw the ball, and it worked. It worked. Meanwhile, it was against a Dolphins secondary that's been kind of bad this entire season, but we'll ignore it. The Dolphins pass catchers and Justin Fields, stand of the week. Justin Fields looked great running the ball, but let's talk about Darnell Mooney getting his first touchdown of the season. That's a travesty. That's coming in week 9. And then Cole Kmet, where have you been for the first 8 weeks? I was touting you in fantasy, but that didn't happen. Cole Kmet, 2 touchdowns this week. Actually made a really good ball game down in Miami. The Bears pass catchers are alive and well. Is it because of Chase Claypool being in the room? We will see. But the Bears pass catchers and Justin Fields, first stand of the week.
My second stand of the week, I am going Sauce Gardner. Showing love to 2 rookies in the secondary. Sauce Gardner with a big pick in the third to set up the James Robinson touchdown to take the lead against Buffalo. And then the very last play of the game had the big pass breakup on Gabe Davis. He has been, my gosh, something special for the Jets. Shout out Kirby. Shout out Sauce. Let's ride.
A little weird there. We'll go to Brett.
Glad somebody else said let's ride besides me. Anyways.
Thank God the Broncos were off this week. Just saying.
Well, they're going to be playing your Titans this week, so you're going to be forced to watch them.
I'll pass.
Anywho, no one's really talked about him, so I'm going to give him the shout out. I'm a Joe Mixon stan. 5 tutties. Obvious pick. I know it's a cop-out. Ben's sleeping.
No, I'm sleeping on Mike's thought that I love the Bengals, but we'll move on.
Anyways,
to fill it. Oh, sorry, Brett. I'm going to cut you off here with a soliloquy. Mike has been under the impression that I am a Bengals bandwagoner because I talk about the Bengals a little bit, and he told me this a few nights ago, and I was absolutely dumbfounded by it.
I was dumbfounded to find out that you were very much not a Bengals fan.
It's because I bought the Joe Burrow jersey, isn't it?
No, not only that, it was before that. I thought you were a big fan of the jungle. Evidently not.
Anyways, Joe Mixon, 5 touchdowns on the day. I'll rest my case there. Had a phenomenal game. Run game looked phenomenal for Cincinnati. We haven't seen Joe Mixon do that before, or honestly in quite some time. So shout out Joe Mixon. And shout out Juju.
And shout out Baker Mayfield.
All right.
His
He
college
did play in
quarterback.
that game. He did play in that game. That was sad to see. I am a Cade Otton stan. Cade Otton with the game-winning touchdown there for the Bucks. I love the delayed ooze from Mike and Brett there, one after the other. Cade Otton taking a bit of a bigger role with Cameron Brate out for the Buccaneers, and actually was looking pretty good. Everyone on the Bucks receiving core was getting a healthy share of targets, but it was Cade Otton that was able to get in the end zone to secure this game for the Bucks. I was watching this game with my dad, and I was like, Dad, if they don't set up Evans one-on-one on the outside and throw to him, they're going to lose. And you know what? They didn't do that, and they won. So that's why I am not an NFL coach, and that's why I am sitting on my couch.
We love to see it.
Well, with that, with the disruption of Brett and the sitting on the couch, we will wrap it up here on the 3 and Out podcast.
Out of us three, who do you think would make the best NFL coach? My answer is clear.
Who do you think, Brett?
It's Coach Pope.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Benny or bust.
It's Coach Pope. I think it's Coach Pope because out of all of us, he has the most
temperament.
Yeah, and most like
sense.
What was that?
He has the most schematical sense, meaning he knows how to scheme.
Well, I was meaning like in terms of like hyping up the team. Like if I want anyone to give a nice pep talk, I'm going Benny because Benny can rile up the crowd like no other. Let me tell you.
Well, good thing because I was going to go with Coach Rob, but we'll move on.
Shout out Jeff Saturday.
I'm so glad we didn't talk about that.
I think we have to briefly.
Yeah, the Colts hired Jeff Saturday as their interim head coach. It's weird.
It's weird.
We rested there.
All right. Well, with that,
shout out Lucas Oil. Brett will see you there in March.
It'll be the new defensive play caller alongside him.
All right, Brett.
But with that, he'll have to learn whatever it's Shaquille. He'll have to learn Leonard's new first name. But with that, we'll do like our 5th cut there. This is it for the 3 and Out podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed, make sure to give us a like and a subscription. Check us out on all social medias, 3 and Out Pod, numero uno, number 1. And for Mike Cicchetti, Brett Schaubs, I am Ben Pope. Take care. Brush your hair.